Diagnostics is a very large part of healthcare. 80+% of pathways are going to involve some sort of lab test or image to support diagnosis. So it's depending on how you define it, it's a very significant part of the UK healthcare market, around 6-7% of overall spend. I think it broadly splits into imaging and laboratory work, and laboratory subsplits into blood sciences, microbiology, histopathology, and genetic testing, which is growing. And so the report gives an overview of all those elements of the market with volumes and values, and it splits it by type of test and, more importantly, by payer. Obviously, the NHS is the most significant, but there's private healthcare, direct to consumer, and some other smaller niches. The last report was published about 2 weeks before COVID hit. So yeah, quite a lot has happened in the world since the last report, and we held off the second edition, waiting until we had a sort of clear data sets that were less affected by COVID. So I think obviously COVID has been a big factor, and laboratories saw a short-term growth of about a factor of 4 of revenues, a factor of about 10 in profits from COVID. We do cover that, but I think we also look at what we think the long-term impact of COVID will be in terms of people being more willing to accept virtual discussions with doctors and testing from home test kits. So we are looking at a lot of what happened during COVID, as well as what we think the long-term impact of COVID will be in terms of patient and consumer behavior, new entrants to the market who came in on the back of COVID. And I think, interestingly, some of the people who made money during COVID are investing in new business models, seeing quite a growth of suppliers in direct-to-consumer lab testing, people opening up retail sites to deliver that, with supported by large investments in social media and other advertising campaigns, and I think a greater consumer acceptance of being at home tests or going to testing companies for tests, particularly on the back of difficulty accessing NHS GPs and NHS testing. So that's quite a key trend. I think we're seeing some other interesting trends in imaging with companies who are trying to sort of act as the kind of intermediaries, if you like, the kind of sky scanner of imaging type model, where they will find you the most convenient, best value scan. And I think we're sort of seeing the emergence of AI is getting more traction than it was when we wrote the last report. So I think the last report was aimed at a broad group of potential readers who've all got slightly different needs. So it does cover a lot of things aiming at those groups. So obviously there are people in the market who provide services who want to get a sense of our view of the market. There are people who supply the market, equipment, software, other providers, people developing AI who want basic figures. There are investors in the market, private equity funds, UK and overseas, as well as banks who may be lending into the market. We found other people who are looking at developing lab facilities, were buying and looking at the report. I guess there's then a whole group of advisors, management consultancy companies, and others who were big users of the last report. And then the NHS, so people involved in NHS laboratories, people running the regional networks, regional teams, and the national team, as well as commissioners of NHS services. All those groups bought the last report. We all hope they'll find the current report interesting.